if you repeatedly get off to something, your brain will wire the circuits so that those images or those thoughts or those fantasies are wired to that arousal. A lot of male predators end up going down the path, and no one is immune from this.
You cannot sexually reach a high level of satisfaction with your partner because you are being turned on, whether you admit it or not, to these very extreme things that you know you would never do in real life because they're so extreme. So when you're actually intimate with your partner, yeah, you might be able to orgasm or you might be somewhat invested in it, but you're not at your highest potential because some of your sexual yearning is over here in this very dark area where you can't even physically do those things.
The perversion of it is where it has to be felt in a violent way or a degrading way. Because if a man degrades a woman or is violent with her, he's doing those things. He is dominating and he is exhibiting power. I read 50 Shades of Grey. I know people are like, oh, that's light. I'm not impressed when you tell me that 50 Shades of Grey is light. Like, I get it. I get what you're trying to say. And I know of darker things and I've read darker things. I've done my research on it and plenty of romance novels. I've read plenty of them because I recommend that guys read romance novels to figure out what women are interested in.
That's good you mentioned it because a few ladies, I won't go too far on the tangent. A few ladies were like, no, it's about the possessiveness and the obsession this man has with the woman. It's about he'll do anything for her. And they don't even realize, like, I'd be like, give the book to your husband, not to you. Because you're fantasizing about this person rather than I'd give it to my husband if he wasn't stacking up like that and be like, here, learn a few things maybe. That's a little harsh, but.
And there is an element of it. And I think to sidetrack a little bit here, just to understand the psychology. Well, one thing, just real quick, I got to circle back to, which is that neurons that wire together fire together, wire together, right? So what I was saying before, which you said about children, but it applies to adults as well, because we have neuroplasticity as adults, which means that our brain can still change.
Learn,
is that if you repeatedly get off to something, your brain will wire the circuits so that those images or those thoughts or those fantasies are wired to that arousal. And you will need to seek more and more stimulation to achieve the same effect, just like a drug. And that's you go darker and darker down the hole. And you will get to a point where the only way for you to be turned on is to look at or consume really dark stuff. It's the exact way that, unfortunately, a lot of male predators end up going down the path and doing things to people and doing stuff that we're not even going to talk about on this podcast. But it comes from that. And it's because our brains are wired and no one is immune from this. If you look at stuff and again, these studies have been done on men with corn, is that they keep on going darker and deeper into it because it's not enough.
Well, here's one thing that I will say on that since we're here. I believe these women don't want these things done to them, especially the extreme things, right? But that doesn't negate the fact that you cannot sexually reach a high level of satisfaction with your partner because you are being turned on, whether you admit it or not, to these very extreme things that you know you would never do in real life because they're so extreme. So when you're actually intimate with your partner, yeah, you might be able to orgasm or you might be somewhat invested in it, but you're not at your highest potential because some of your sexual yearning is over here in this very dark area where you can't even physically do those things. Because I think men typically will risk it because they are more sexual to go and do some of the extreme things. Women don't typically do like really extreme sexual behavior usually. Because they're also reading about like aliens and whatever, fairy princes, I don't know. But what they don't realize is that there is part of their sexuality that is only, what is the word I'm looking for? Activated or quenched by this.
Or they'll have to fantasize while they're doing the act about the things in order to get to where they want to go. Not good. Right.
Whereas, like you said too, I think, and I was going to save this for the end, but I think it's good now. I think that these people, if they would be open to not reading their books for like a few months,
right,
and investing with their husband and really investing in their actual real life physical intimacy relationship, and increasing that, I think that they would realize what we're saying.
Right.
And what they don't realize too is that they would be training their brain back to reality.
Right. Just like men have to do when they have porn.
Right. They have to
addiction.
go cold turkey.
Right. Because, and then they retrain a lot of erectile dysfunction comes from that. And then when they stop it, then they're able to be aroused again by normal women, by normal situation. So, and one thing I want to address with this though is because it's where does this come from, right? Because why do women like these dark things, right? Why would someone fantasize or read about someone being degraded or abused and treated in that way? And it is what you said is, and there's a healthy version. This is a perversion of a healthy desire, right? And so let's talk about that, because the desire is what you just said that women were saying, which is to be dominated. That is a desire of women, right? It sure doesn't sound politically correct, but it is, especially in the bedroom. And for them to be submissive, right? For them to feel the power of a man and to feel like they cannot, that he is more powerful, that he can overpower them. You know what I mean? That is it is a natural desire. That is a feminine desire to feel overwhelmed by a man's strength and power, right? And so the perversion of it is where it has to be felt in a violent way or a degrading way. Because if a man degrades a woman or is violent with her, he's doing those things. He is dominating and he is exhibiting power and making her feel not powerful or under his command or under his power, his might, right? But there's a healthy version of that desire, which is just simply, there's a difference, as a man, even I think this is good for men to understand, is that you don't have to do the kind of extreme stuff, even if she's asking for that stuff, but you can still display your dominance. You can command in a strong voice, right? To say, I want you to do this or get on the bed, right? That's not abusive. Right. It's not degrading. Right. It's just saying, I'm calling the shots here. Right. Like, you know what I mean? I'm in charge of your pleasure, right? That's fine. Those are fine. Even the power, right? There's nothing wrong with holding down, holding someone down. There's nothing wrong with even, some degree of bondage and stuff like that. If the reason for it is for that, to create that feeling. But those are healthy ways in order to achieve those desires. And those are natural desires and those are fine, right? So we're not trying to, because I think the thing is, people think they're being shamed for their desires, right? Which are natural desires. It's just that the world that we live in has perverted those desires in a way that, because the way that I'm talking about fulfilling those desires, it increases intimacy. It's a closeness, right? It's a trust. And people say the trust, but look, you're not increasing intimacy when you're calling someone an SLUT. You're not increasing intimacy when you're, I'm not going to say the things that I've, the podcast, but doing violence to a woman, even if she's asking for it. That's not increasing intimacy. It's not. It's a way of avoiding intimacy. That's why these things exist. It's a way to get these needs met without having to be vulnerable and actually having to actually have true intimacy. And that's why it's destructive to intimacy. And that's why I get it. I understand romance novels. I understand these books. I understand the appeal to these things. I understand that people think that they're innocent and that I'm being extreme. But it's psychologically not the healthy way to get those desires met. And the more that you get them met in that way, you're training your brain to only get them met in that way. And it's going to be very difficult to go, quote, vanilla. You know what I'm saying? Like that's, and people say that as if it's a bad thing. And I get it. And again, I'm not a Quaker. I'm not a religious fanatic.
Never experienced the true intimacy like you have, because trust me, it's far from vanilla.